Hello, everyone, and welcome back. My name is Kelly Baltzell. I'm the CEO and owner of Beyond Indigo Pets. Welcome, welcome. We have our guest speaker today, Clinton Latham from Luca Veterinary Security Systems. But first, a little shout out to us. This is our 100th episode on Facebook Live. Will, who's behind the scenes, yay! And I never thought we'd hit 100 because we started this to help people during COVID, and well, we're still going in COVID. So unfortunately, we're still in COVID. But the good news is we still get to talk to so many fun people like Clint. Yay!
Amazing.
Will's putting our 100th episode. So with that said, Clint, tell us about like you and the cool stuff you do. Like I geek out on this stuff, like you and I were talking about before the show started, but for everybody else, what do you do?
My simple soapbox is my mission in life is to help veterinary practice owners realize that they have data that's of value and help them to protect it. That's kind of my mission statement.
I love it. It's short and sweet and easy to understand. But
my Blue Ocean Strategy, if anybody's read that book.
And you've also written a book that's on your site for free, right?
Yeah, I have a number of different publications. So yeah, you can go to luca.vet and you can get my 5 simple steps to protect your practice. So things you can do today to kind of help, things you could do over a weekend, over a couple lunch breaks, just to really help shore up kind of some cybersecurity issues within your practice. And that's free, so you can get that on the website for free, and hopefully you find some value out of it. I also have a complete incident response plan that you can get from my site, as well as a disaster recovery plan. So failing to plan is planning to fail, right? And so we can have if we don't have a plan in place, then we're in a lot of trouble. So hopefully those help people as well.
Awesome. Well, it sounds so simple on the surface, like, hey, this is what I do. We got data and everything. Let's dive into that for a minute. So we get all kind of like in our own little islands out there, and we think, because see what I've noticed, maybe you've noticed, is people have a personal relationship with their device, and they think it's private, right? Like I'm on a computer talking to you, but that's my device and nobody else can get on there. And that's my phone and nobody else can get on there except my teenage daughter who figures out stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Who's like 7.
Yeah, they're whiz bang at it, right?
Yeah.
But really that's not true. That's an illusion that we delude ourselves that this is a private moment. Really what it is a gateway to a bigger world. And the world is twofold. And there's one where there's a whole bunch of information happening. That's where your hackers hang out and have some coffee and some croissant in their folders. But why is somebody sitting somewhere, even like in the middle of the Midwest, where they say they're in a town of 5,000 people, why is their data valuable?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. But I mean, I guess if we look at the vet practice individually, most practice owners don't think that they have any data that's of any value, right? Until like last year when I was speaking at PHMA and we were talking about the Covetrus data breach and them doing some kind of interesting things with harvesting practices data and then selling directly to their customers, then it becomes a problem. So we sit in this weird space where, at least in the veterinary space, where we don't think we have any data that's any valuable, and we're not gonna get attacked, and nobody would want to attack us. But yet, when something does happen to our data, we're really upset about it, right? So I think I just wrote an article the other day that I think really kind of pushes this home. So don't take it from me that you have data that's valuable. If we look at the data regulations that are coming across the country, and I think if we use the CCPA, which is the California Consumer Protection Act, that it's kind of the gold standard. So we had GDPR, which came out last year, and it's really all about protecting the consumer, right? So the EU really saw that there was really no protections when it came to the general consumer and how their data is handled. And California soon followed suit, and then we had states like Massachusetts, South Dakota, New York. They pretty much copycatted the CCPA, which is the California Consumer Protection Act. So basically what the CCPA says is that if you have data that's what we call PII, or personally identifiable information, that data is valuable and you have to take reasonable measures to protect it. So if you think about a vet practice, I mean, how many of us I mean, if you're integrated with something like XCharge, I mean, not only do you have personally identifiable information, name, phone number, email address, pet name, health records associated with that pet, you also have credit card information. So, and a lot of times with XCharge, depending upon how that's set up and configured, you may not be PCI compliant, and you may just be paying your merchant services account like this fine. They give you essentially this fine, which in some cases acts like an insurance policy, in some cases doesn't. It's just a fine that you pay for not being PCI compliant. And so if we look at it today, the way attacks happening now, so we used to just have ransomware. So ransomware would come in and they realize that your business can't function without your data. So there's one reason that it's valuable, right? Like your data is the heartbeat of your business. And so if that heartbeat is gone, how do you function? So it used to be that they would just find a way to get in. They would encrypt all of your data. They would tell you to pay them an astronomical amount in Bitcoin in order to release the data. Now what they're doing, and the more prevalent attack, is what we call two-stage ransomware. So not only do they get on the network, and then they sit there. And they sit there for maybe a week, maybe a month, maybe years, right? We don't know. If you don't have the right tools monitoring the network, you could have no idea how long they're sitting there. And then they start pulling data. And so they start gathering anything they can. They'll pull all of your HR files if those are on the server. They'll pull all of your client information. They'll pull your Cornerstone database, your Impromed database, Avamart database. They'll pull that data. And then what they'll do is they'll dump a payload onto your network, and then they'll send you an email outlining a whole bunch of specifics about your business. Maybe they'll say, I see that you have 12,000 customers in your customer database, and last week you did a dental on Fluffy. And I'm going to sell this information on the dark web to a bunch of people who could want to take advantage of this information. Or I'm just going to release it to the general public and to all your customers to destroy your customer reputation if you don't pay me. And then what they do is then they lock you out of your data. So not only now do they know everything about your business, and they're threatening to release it to your customers, to destroy your reputation, sell that information on the web, whatever they see as their benefit. Now they've prevented you from accessing it. So really, if we look at the most profitable organizations in the world, they're all data companies, right? Like we're on Facebook right now. So Facebook, the Amazons, the Googles of the world, data is now more valuable than oil. And just as you're talking about, like, this is my personal device and this is what I'm doing, nobody can see it but me. I mean, we even had a lot of lawsuits because we don't have any federal regulations from the federal level governing data protections. It all comes down to the state and the FTC. So the Federal Trade Commission has some ways to kind of leverage fines and try to help protect the end user and consumer. But I mean, there's a lot of really dirty things that companies like Google and other companies have done, trying to basically learn everything they can about you and to kind of harvest that data.
It's horrible. And there's just data brokers too. I don't think people understand that in this country, there's companies that have on average 1,500 data points on you, and that they buy and sell your data. And that's their whole premise of existence, is data brokering. Right?
Actually, yeah. And I actually had a conversation, and I'll leave them nameless because I don't want to call anybody out, but we're having a conversation that in the vet industry right now, there are a number of bolt-ons or add-ons for your practice that those companies don't make money. They are not solvent unless they sell your data on the back end. So without them actually selling your data to another third-party person who's then going to use that to learn everything about you and sell you more products or services or whatever, they don't exist. So to think that we're isolated from that sort of thing in the vet space is just, we'd be lying to ourselves.
Free is really not free. When you're free, you're the product, you're not the consumer.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? Like free is, there's quite a higher price that's attached to the word free. So if something's free, you really maybe should look a little bit harder at that. I actually feel more comfortable paying for something because I know that possibly reduces, the whole, it takes one red flag off the table. Let's put it that way. If I have to pay to use a service versus a free thing. Let's talk about vulnerability links. So where can hackers get in? You and I were talking about a few beforehand, and they're there are things people don't even know, right? Like they assume is safe, but really aren't safe. What are those?
That's another list that's a mile long, and it really kind of depends on the practice. I think for most people, if you're a private practice owner and you're listening to this, the biggest thing you could do is to help educate your staff. We were talking about this before we went live. I just had from an industry partner. They sent out a report on kind of the current trends in the hacking space, and 90% in 2019, 90% of data breaches occurred as a result of an employee mistake. So, and actually I've listened to, there's actually a great podcast. If you're a podcast junkie and you're interested in technology and hacking, it's called Darknet Diaries. And this guy interviews former hackers who were on the other side, right? They were on that dark web, and they tell their stories and they talk about the things that they were doing. And what's interesting is he interviewed this one guy who really wasn't that technically savvy. Like, I mean, I'm a far better hacker than he was, but he was really good at what we call social engineering. So really, once he could find a way to communicate to you, whether that's through email, in person, you name it, he could find a way in. And I mean, he stole hundreds of millions of dollars over the years, just being smart about being able to manipulate people. So I think what that really tells us is that no matter, shameless self-promotion here, you could hire me and we could put in all the best cyber protection tools and monitoring that money can buy in your practice. But if we don't focus on the staff and we don't give them, as my good buddy Josh Weissman says, the psychological safety to know that if they made a mistake, that they should come to us so we can implement our incident response plan and immediately minimize the impact of that threat, none of that matters. All that goes out the window because the person on the other end is the weakest link. I mean, I myself have been hacked, right? Like I'm somebody who thinks about data security all the time. And I don't know if I'm putting myself out here with the vet space, but what's interesting, I was working with a human side of things because there's a lot of HIPAA compliance and stuff. And I guess spending a lot of money to go to law school puts me in this unique position to be able to understand the HIPAA compliance. But anyways, so I had one of their auditors emailing me, but we were emailing some stuff back and forth. And he had actually sent me an email. And it was fake because he had gotten hacked. And so it's called business email compromise. And so I trusted him because I was working with him. We were working on a project together, and it got me. And I was like, they were like, hey, I need you to view this document and essentially, log into Office 365 SharePoint to view this document about the client X. So, I mean, it had the customer name, it had everything, right? So, and I trusted him. And literally, and then when I opened the document, I was like, this is weird. And I didn't think anything of it until all of a sudden my phone was blowing up because I had 2FA enabled on my email account. And so I was getting these alerts that, hey, somebody's trying to log into your account from Pakistan, right? And it's sending me these codes to log in. And so I immediately knew I got caught. And so I had to go change my password right away. So that immediately stopped it because it was no longer valid. But had I not had the two-form authentic, 2FA on there, they would have gotten in my account and probably started doing the same thing. And who knows how long it would have been before I would have caught it.
Nobody knows what you just said. TFA.
Oh, 2FA, two-form factor authentication. Sorry. So really, it's kind of it's a new way of security. So again, I think in that ebook that I have, which is the 5 simple steps to protect your practice, is just to enable 2FA or two-form factor authentication on any of your important accounts like email, banking accounts, that sort of stuff. And a lot of it'll send you a text message on your cell phone that you have to enter that one-time code to log in. So it kind of verifies that it's you. Again, there are ways as a hacker to get around that, but it's a lot more difficult. And I would really have to want to seek you out specifically to really get that information. But just another fail-safe and probably one of the best things simplest and best things you can do right now.
Sounds perfect. So to sum this up is your data matters, number one.
Yeah.
Right? Like just because you think you're an island in the great sea of the world, you're not, right?
Yep. Yeah.
That's it.
Exactly, yeah.
You need to look at both your network electronic system as well as your human capital, like the people who work for you. Both need to be, the humans need to be trained and your hospital needs to be looked at from top to bottom to see where your vulnerabilities are, because there's many, right?
Yep.
And it's sort of like pest control in a way. So if I have a person come to my house to prevent mouseageddon happening in my house, they go around the house and plug the holes. Well, that's what something like your company does. It goes around,
exactly,
plugs the holes, right?
Yep. We got to find those gaps, and then we help fill those gaps.
Yep. And put little gates over them, and little can't go through here type of issue.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a great analogy. Yeah.
Right? Because that's kind of how I think about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then people may never know, but you were giving me, we'll end on this, some statistic of how many breaches, hacks every so many seconds.
Oh, yeah. An attack happens on a small business every 36 seconds, but we just don't hear about it, right? So we hear about the Garmins of the world that were just hacked, like 4 weeks ago. In our industry, we hear about NVA because it was 400 hospitals, but we don't hear about the small hospital in Portland that got hacked because they were hiring and somebody sent them a fake resume, right? So we just don't hear about those things.
Right. So, but they do happen, right? Just
every 36 seconds. Yep.
Every 36
seconds. However many times since we've been talking, some poor business owner has been hacked. Yeah.
And just totally screwed their day. Yeah.
Oh, and if 2020 hasn't been worse enough for them as it is.
They just add salt to the wound and dig it in, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, this has been so much fun. Thank you for.
Thank you for having me on, and congrats on 100 episodes. It's amazing. I'm so excited I got to be on the 100th episode. It's an honor. Yeah, very much an honor.
Well, thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.